Hey everyone! I am going to walk you through a week in the life of wonders, kind of focusing on the comprehension aspect of it. Because when we met with Sarah, we kind of determined some enhancements that we can make to the curriculum, which is basically evening it out over a 5-day lesson sequence and then kind of omitting some of the things that we just don't have time for because we only have 30 minutes for comprehension. So this is first grade and this is day 1, week 5. I'm just going to kind of walk you through it as quickly as possible and then I'll open that up to questions, of course. So when we start off our unit and our week, we are going to start with the essential question. That does not go away. You can introduce it using the presentation mode digitally or just within the students' books. That's fine too. We are going to give you the option to skip the oral vocabulary words right here if you don't have time. So we're going to skip oral vocab and we're going to skip the interactive read aloud. Now, if you have time to pull in a graphic organizer, I would just do that whole group. But the big one here we want to try and keep is collaborative conversations. We're always doing partner talk as much as possible. So basically, day 1, you're going to introduce essential question and make a graphic organizer if you can and discuss. You're going to skip oral vocab, and then that will bring you into the interactive read aloud. This is something that you are also going to skip if you don't have time. All right, I know a lot of you have been trying to fit in the read aloud cards. Great if it works for you, but if it doesn't, this is what goes. I do want, as a teacher, I would be looking at what is my strategy this week. This week it's ask and answer questions, and I'm going to pull that into my shared text. I'm not going to worry about these pages. These can be skipped. So introduce the essential question and go right into your word work. Word work follows as usual, no changes there. Your vocab routine is now within your word work. We are going to do these vocabulary words, but not the oral vocabulary words. Then you'll go into your shared reading for the day. Shared read is from your reading writing workshop book, and it's just the short story at the beginning there. Now, if you bring your attention to this section here, you just did all of this. It's reviewing your high frequency words. You just did that. It's reviewing your sound pattern. You just did that. And then it's talking about important words to the story. You can just do that in the text as they appear. A lot of these don't need to be reviewed, quite frankly. So when you come to them in the text, if you think your kids are going to have issues, that's when you can address them. So basically, skip this top section. You are going to briefly touch on genre, just real quick. And then you're going to follow these pages as is. So you're going to read the story, stopping to ask these questions here, doing a lot of partner talk, turn and tell your partner, so that everybody is having a chance to discuss. Your fluency practice here, it says to reread the story. You probably won't have time for that. If you do, great, and go for it. But otherwise, your kids are listening to you read here, so they're hearing your fluency. They're practicing within their decodables. They're practicing within their small groups. So we're not going to stress this focus on fluency, certainly not rereading. Do try and end with this making connections question. Turn and talk, tell your partners, share out. So that's day 1. Of course, this isn't quite included. Then into day 2, essential question, skip. Move right into word work. Do as is. There's your vocabulary routine. Comprehension. For day 2, this is a close read. It's the same story that you did yesterday, but with specific questions and really connecting to the skill and the strategy that you're working on this week. So the skill here is cause and effect. Our strategy was asking and answering questions. So we're going to model both of those as we go. So you may either reread the whole story. It says here, you will now reread the nonfiction selection. You can reread the whole story to them and then dig into these pages, or you can look ahead and notice what your skill and strategy is and just focus in on those particular paragraphs and excerpts. It's good to fill out the graphic organizer, but that can be done whole group. You do not need to have every student filling out a graphic organizer. So for day 2, you're going to reread. You can read it all the way through, or you can read and stop. And you're going to make sure to address these issues here. We're doing a lot of turn and talk and filling out a whole group graphic organizer. Make sure that you know your skill and strategy for the week going into this. That's it for day 2. Day 3 is where you have your kind of beast of a story. Essential question, skip your oral vocab. Now this section here, comprehension and fluency, first grade, you can just do this within the next story. Okay, it says to reread the story again. We're not going to read it for the 3rd time. You are good. You're set. So do think about these, and this is going to go into your story next. You're going to make sure that you introduce some intonation and phrasing. You're going to make sure that you review main idea and key details. This little symbol here means review. You have gone over this, so we're going to go over it inside the text. So basically, skip, but keep in mind, this is a teacher call here. You're going to go into your word work as usual. Here's your vocabulary inside. And that brings you to your close read of the day. Now, this is the one that Teachers Have Been Finding takes 2 days to get through. That's okay. We are giving you permission to span this over Wednesday and Thursday if you need that time. I do want to draw your attention here to these symbols. This was something new to me. Notice the little red tab says read, green is reread, and blue is integrate. This is what we are focusing on. Read. This is the most important. If you have time, or on day 2, we're going to go into reread. But remember, everything spirals here, so you're going to hit it all at some point. But really, we don't have time to fit in every one of these little things. So we are going to really focus on the main points, which are your skill and your strategy. So cause and effect, ask and answer question. So as I'm reading this with my students, I'm going to read it out loud. Every once in a while, I can stop and say, let's reread that paragraph together, and they'll have a chance. Usually when I do that, it's to address one of these questions. So notice as you're reading in the text, you're going to do the essential question. You're going to, I would not worry about your story words until you come up to them in the text, address them in the text. If you want to preview them first, that's fine. It says note taking. Sometimes it gives you a graphic organizer. Sometimes it just says take notes. So feel free to use sticky notes, make your own graphic organizer, use the one from Wonders. But this is something that you can do whole group. It does not have to be every student, but you can if you feel like your students are ready for that. So basically, you're going to read the essential question, read the story, and every time you see one of these numbers, check and see, is this an important part? Yes, because this is your skill. This is your skill. This is within the read section. We're going to read, stop. Now notice it says reread for text features. Theoretically, if we had enough time, we would read this whole story through doing just the red tab. And then tomorrow we would read the whole story again, focusing on the green tab. If we don't have time for that, you're going to look at this and decide, is this important to my kids? Do they need to know this, or can I hit this at another time? This is what we're focusing on. Read, stop, address, keep going. Here's another red tab, read. So I'm going to read it through, stop, address, fill out whole group. Notice this says root words. I'm not going to stress about root words. I'm stressing about the skill and the strategy. Can you, if you have time and if it's natural to put into your teaching? Yes. Can you save that for small groups? Yes. Notice it says maintain skill. That means that this has already been taught. You can review it using this text, or you can skip. This says reread. If you have time, do this. Otherwise, it's going to go into tomorrow or wherever you can fit it. Keep going. There we go. read, skill, cause and effect. And talk about your graphic organizer, talk about your purpose for reading. How did that go? Okay, now this part here, the respond to the text, would again be if you have time. First grade, yours is a little bit lighter, so you could practice retelling. Okay, this could go into centers, and always be talking about it, making connections, turn and tell a partner. So that would be Wednesday and Thursday if you need it. First grade, yours is a little shorter, so you could read it all through Wednesday doing just the red tab. And then Thursday, you would reread, pulling up all of these green tabs, focusing on your fluency, your intonation, your text features, root words, review skills, author's craft. So notice there's a lot more that you could do with this day 2, or I guess it would technically be day 4, analyzing the text. So that's going to go into Thursday, a rereading of the text or finishing the text that you didn't get to on Thursday. Okay? That means, so Thursday, we're going to extend the concept. We're going to talk about the essential question. Yes, I would. Oh, so Thursday's story is going into Friday, right? Because Wednesday and Thursday, we spent doing our big, long shared read. Wednesday, Thursday, read and read. Then this story is going to go into Friday. Okay, so imagine this as day 5. Yes, do the essential question. Don't worry about your oral vocab words. Now we are going to address text features. Okay, we mentioned them briefly yesterday. We're going to get into it here. We're going to read our text, talk about text features. We're going to set them up for reading and tell them our purpose. Today we're going to compare these different texts. We're going to talk about what we learned in all 3 stories that we read this week. And you are going to read this story to your students, stopping to answer these questions. Notice again, we're going to focus on read, on our text feature, and our skill. If we have time, then we do this. They're going to retell their story. They're going to reread for understanding. And always make connections. We're always going to use this last story to tie everything together. Sarah suggested putting kids into groups of 3. One kid would tell about each story that they read this week and how it connects to the essential question. And Friday, there is no, technically, comprehension, which is why we're moving that Thursday story into Friday. So that's what I've got for first grade. I know that was a lot. So please let me know if you do have questions, and hopefully I can clarify some of those, or I would be happy to come and model one of those days, even if it's not the day that I'm there at your school. Just pick which day. Say I'm having struggles with the really long text from the literature anthology. Will you do that for me? And I would be more than happy to look at it and plan it out, and we can co-teach it or I can model it. So let me know what questions you have. Thank you, everyone. I know it's a lot.